Hello. How are you doing,
Hi,
Ashley?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. Welcome to YouTube Live. This is so exciting. I know this is your first YouTube Live, so we will, get through all the questions. If anyone tunes in live and has questions, I'll make sure to put them on the screen and we can answer them. But just to introduce everybody to Ashlee. So Ashlee Sang is the owner of Ashlee Sang Consulting and the host of the Purpose and Progress podcast. And she equips entrepreneurs to take confident, meaningful action in alignment with their values. She believes that business can feel and do good when it's rooted in values and propelled by purpose. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about you and how you got started in branding and messaging?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So, I am based in Central Illinois. I work with conscious and caring business owners from all around the world, mostly in the US, but I always love my international projects for sure. My background is in international development and nonprofit communications, and my work has really run the gamut of all things communication implementation. And I now live in this strategy realm of values aligned brand messaging, which then informs all of your marketing, all of your decision making, all of your mindset as a leader. Everything in your business comes back for me to values aligned brand messaging. So I'm super excited to dig into the topic.
Awesome. I love that. And it's so true. It's that solid foundation, right, of your business that everything else can build on, right? So I love that we're going to kind of go through that today. So can you tell us a little bit more about what value aligned messaging is compared to what the average entrepreneur or business owner thinks of when they think of messaging?
Yeah. So when you think of messaging, you might think of your elevator pitch. You might think of, I don't know, like industry jargon, or you might think of your standard content pillars. Like, all right, I talk about YouTube, I talk about Instagram, and I talk about Facebook, and that's my messaging, right?
Right.
But for me, your messaging is much more than that. It's how you make people feel. It is that link between the people on the receiving end and the vision that you're creating. So the values for me are that conduit. They're that middle ground. They're that how. They're how you show up. They're how you make people feel. They're how you communicate those messages. And so when you have your values in check, when you know what you're rooted in, when you're able to stand for something, you're able to stand out. You're able to make decisions a lot more easily. You're able to build trust a lot more easily with your audience. And you're able to connect on a really human level, which is what so many consumers, clients, business partners are looking for now and in the future for sure. So when you connect on this human level, you're able to run a business that feels good. You're able to run a business that does good, and you're able to grow your revenue in a really sustainable, non-icky way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I like that you said stand for something because sometimes I think in our businesses, we can get so caught up in the how or like what we're doing for clients that we kind of forget about maybe why we started something in the first place or really what we're standing for. So I think going back to that kind of root is so important for your messaging. So when you think of kind of thinking about what you're standing for, what would you say is, what do you do to help someone realize that if they're kind of struggling with what that looks like?
Yeah. So the process is a lot of really deep reflection on the business owner's part, the founder's part, and a lot of questions on my part. So it's a little bit of magic. Like there's a little bit of something that I can't quite nail down. But a lot of it is simply getting everything out of your head and heart, getting something reflected off another person who doesn't live inside your brain or your business all day, every day. I've been working a lot with leadership teams recently, and a lot of times it's simply seeing where people are on the same page and where they're on completely different pages of how they view the business, how they view the vision that you're all moving toward theoretically, right? How they view the vision, and especially how they talk about what it is you do and why it matters. So my work is a lot of validating the vision that founders have. It's a lot of asking those probing questions of why does this really matter? What do you really mean by that? And then it's distilling it all together so that it's a little bit of marketing speak and a lot of connection between everything that you have as your vision and everything that the people on the receiving end, your audience, need to know from you in order to trust you, buy with you, refer you, and stay in your orbit.
Right. No, that makes sense. And what about the people who may be watching this that think, well, I didn't start my business for some big important reason. What do you say to someone like that if they say, I just started my business to make money, for example?
Yeah. So I doubt that's true, first of all. I think if most people really sat and thought about it, especially entrepreneurs, you could just get a day job if you just wanted money, right? Like entrepreneurship is not the easy path. It is not something that you just show up every day and collect a paycheck on. Like entrepreneurship takes passion and skill and experience and resilience, and it takes a bigger why in order to really not only get it off the ground but continue to build it. Second of all, if someone were to really tell me that and really believe that, they probably wouldn't be my client, but that's fine. Like that when we have values alignment in our business, we're able to attract the people that we want to attract, and we're able to repel the people that we want to repel, which is equally as important.
Yes.
But yeah, for most business owners, there is a why. And so I like to think of it in two different directions. And sometimes this helps contextualize. So you can think of your vision first, like, okay, this is the big picture that I want to create. And then you think about how you amplify that vision out to the people you want to reach, right? Those are the customers. Those are the people that fund the vision. And then the sort of cycle repeats. Or you can think about the people you want to serve first. A lot of times it comes from personal experience or a deep passion, right? I really want to help new moms. I really want to work with minority business owners. I really want to create clean, sustainable products for young people, whatever it is, whoever your audience is. You can think about that audience first and craft your vision around them. What's the offer suite or the product line, or what are the things I can create around those people? And then your vision sort of grows from there. So those are the two ends of the spectrum I like to start with, either the audience, the who, and then you build up through the values to the how, through the mission to the why, and then up to the vision, which is the what, or the reverse order. But regardless, your values are that through line of how you show up and how you connect that big picture vision and the audience you want to serve.
Awesome. I love that. And I wanted to give you that example of I'm just doing it to make money, because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners out there who think that, I'm just doing this because I want to, make enough money to support my family. And I hear that a lot, but you're right, there always is a bigger why on the back end of it, but it's that they don't have it front and center, that they don't realize that that's what it actually is that's pushing them forward. And so anyone who's watching this either live or the replay of this and thinks that, I really encourage you to think deeper about what your why is and what your purpose is, and connect with Ashlee and see if you guys can work together, because I think drawing that out and having that front and center is going to make things so much easier for you in your messaging and just in your willingness to get through the hard days as an entrepreneur. Because sometimes we have hard days, right? And there's days where we're like, why are we doing this? I could, like you said, go have a 9-to-5 job and come home from that and completely forget about it. But as an entrepreneur, things are harder. Sometimes we have to really push through those. And so having that bigger purpose and those values aligned really helps, I think, anyways, to really push you through those hard days. So
for sure.
Love that. And how would you kind of apply your methodology of value aligned messaging to things like social media?
Yeah. So social media is all about audience, right? It's all about that engagement, that feedback, that give and take. What do they want to hear from you? How do you know that? It's about really getting empathetic and really understanding the people on the receiving end of that message. So, yes, of course, you have business goals with your messaging. You want to talk about this in order to sell that, right? And you want to sell that to that person. And then again, the cycle continues, because the more clients you get or the more customers you get, the more revenue you have, which means you can have even more impact. You have even more capacity to create new, more exciting offers. You have even more data of what you love and what you hate to do, what people want from you and what they don't want from you, right? So it all feeds itself. And on social media, it's some of the most immediate feedback you can get. It's not some big long survey where you have to incentivize with, a gift card or a free hour of your time. People are willing to comment or engage with a poll or DM you because you shared X, Y, and Z in your stories, or like whatever it is. So it absolutely applies to how not only the content that you're creating, the style of it. If you're doing video content, for sure, what kind of music is playing, what sort of lighting, how quickly you cut between takes, all of that is part of the way you want to make your audience feel, right? If you have a really calm, simple brand, and those are core values to your brand and how you want to be known, then like super energetic dancing videos that have a million cuts, and like that's not your vibe, right? Your audience won't want that from you, or it won't be in alignment with the client experience they would have in actually working with you, right? So those are things to consider. And then obviously things like your captions. What are you actually talking about? How do you frame that? Do you talk directly to pain points, or do you only talk about solutions? Do you specifically call out your audience and, hey, I understand that you are a frazzled new mom who's going it alone? Or do you talk more generally? All of these things play into how you show up on social media, how it aligns with your overarching brand messaging, and things like your mission and your voice and your core messages all should align, because the more consistent you are and the more cohesive the entire experience is, from social media to your website to the sales call to the client gift they received, to all the entire brand experience, the more consistent it is, the more cohesive it is, the more you're able to build that trust, build that reputation, and really show up with confidence, because you know what you're talking about, you know what you're rooted in, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting that you say that about even video content and, the way you edit and the way that your graphics look, because I think that's something that, we all know we want pretty branding. And I think that's usually what people think of when they think of branding is their colors, their fonts, their logo. But the fact that you're tying it back to your values and how that is all a cohesive thing is really interesting. Because I think the trend sometimes I see, especially with newer entrepreneurs, is that, you see all of the gurus and the people out there telling you to do this tactic or this, or, edit your videos this way so that you get the most engagement. And what happens with that sometimes is we all just become copiers of each other, or cookie cutter versions of each other. And then you're not standing up from the crowd, right? You're kind of falling away from that value aligned branding. And so I think that's really, really cool what you said about how all of those little pieces matter. And with working with someone like you, or having that, messaging aligned and a strategy together for that, that's going to keep you on track from getting distracted by all of those cookie cutter things and then having, you know, your videos look the same as everybody else's, or your captions look the same as everybody else, or, you know, every little piece, your website, literally everything. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, because there are 1,000,001 other people who do exactly what you do, right?
Yeah.
Yes and no, right? So
Yeah.
yes, there are, you could Google copywriter and you could scroll on Google for eternity, right? Like there would
Yeah.
be an infinite number of copywriters you could choose from, but no one brings the exact personality. No one brings the exact worldview. No one brings the exact same set of values and the client experience and the way you make people feel. No one does that exactly how you do that.
Yeah.
So that is how you stand out. It's capturing those elements, the essence of who you are as a brand, and especially if you're founder forward or service provider forward, who you are as a human. The human behind the
Mhm.
brand is so, so important. And then what's really, really cool about having a brand messaging guide is then you can hand it off to your graphic designer, your web designer, your social media manager, your VA, your YouTube strategist. You can
Yeah.
hand it off to all of your contractors, and they're not starting from a blank page. They're not starting from scratch. They know exactly what your brand voice is. They know exactly what your brand values are. They know exactly who your audience is, your mission is, and they're able to then craft beautiful graphics around that concept. They're able to then craft amazing videos around that vibe, right? So
Mhm.
you're able to hand off this foundational work that's a deep reflection of who you are as a brand, what your vision is, and it's able to be implemented because a strategy is only as good as it is implemented.
Yeah.
So you do the brand messaging strategy, amazing, but then you put it into practice. You make those values aligned decisions and take that values aligned action. And that's where all the magic happens.
Yes, absolutely. And I think for as you grow as an entrepreneur, you are going to build a team. And I think that is a big stress of, you know, is my team going to be able to execute in the same manner that I do? But if you, like you said, if you have that set up already, that makes that handoff so much easier. So I really, really like that a lot. So when you're working with clients building this brand messaging guide, you know, what does that kind of look like? Like, what does your initial kind of process look like when you're working with them?
Yeah, so I do it as a VIP day. And I love it because it attracts action takers and it really puts some creative constraints on us to be able to co-create this quickly, but really, really with a lot of intention. So I send a pre-questionnaire because we write differently than we speak almost always. So I really like them to be able to brain dump. And a lot of times I work with people in two camps. Either they're like, they do something really, really similar to me. So they know how important it is and they're really good with words, but they're just too close to it. Or they're in that camp of like, I'm not good with words. I don't know how to talk about myself. I don't know how to explain this. It just is. So it's in sort of one of those two extremes. So regardless, the pre-questionnaire is really important because it talks around your vision. It talks around your brand rather than asking like, who is your audience? What is your brand? You know, like it
Yeah.
talks around it. And then we get on a live call and we go through and I'm able to ask deeper questions. I'm able to ask, what did you mean by that exactly? Or we're able to lean into the rambles. A lot of times, my client will really start to get talking, right? And then they'll stop themselves like, oh, I'm rambling now. And that's when I know we're getting to the good stuff. That's what they're passionate about. That is what they have the most experience with. That's really where everything special comes from. So we unpack that even further. And then I go off and I distill everything that we've talked about. I have just like notes and notes and notes and notes. And I create a brand messaging guide that has 6 different components that are immediately applicable to your business. This could show up in an IG bio. This could immediately be on your about page. This could be an email headline or subject line for tomorrow, like it's all immediately actionable. And then we get on a wrap up call to make sure it feels right, it sits right, it sounds right. And then It's a lot to take in. It's quite a long guide. It's a living, breathing document. It's not a beautifully designed deck. It is a Google Doc that they can mark up and copy and paste from and add to as their brand evolves. So again, I'm really all about that confident, meaningful action. So 2 to 4, however many weeks later, we hop on an empathetic accountability call because I really want them to know someone's rooting for you. Someone is watching to see if you're putting this strategy into action. What has come up? How can we convert this into an email sequence? How can we redo your about page here on this call? How can we update your employee onboarding guide? Whatever is most urgent or important or confusing for them is what we're able to do on that follow-up call. So that's my process, and it's really, really fun.
I love it because that follow-up call, I think, is what really makes me curious, because so many times I've gone through, programs, or I've worked with coaches where we talk about our messaging and branding. I have a background in branding and graphics. So, I mean, I understand a little bit of that, how important it is in the process, but I've been on so many different working with so many different people who I've done my messaging, but the action behind it is what I find interesting, because I've created these documents before and, done my why and done all of these things, but then putting it into video scripts and putting it into your website and, onboarding new people and all of those different things are where the hiccups come of, oh, maybe I don't know how to say this properly on my website. I have it on a document, but when I have to apply it to something different, if you're too close to something, it can be tricky. So I love that you do that follow-up call, because I really think that's where the magic would happen.
Yeah. And I'm even thinking about how can I work with business owners longer term, because messaging is ongoing, right? We're constantly talking about our business. Maybe you are getting into pitching podcasts. Maybe you're launching a YouTube channel. Maybe you really want to amp up your Instagram game, whatever it is. We're constantly having to talk about our business. And so I'm really thinking about right now, how can I come alongside these business owners without being in their business, right? I don't like the retainer model anymore. It just doesn't fit my lifestyle right now. But I really love that consultant relationship where I'm able to really understand the person behind the brand and the vision of the brand, but I don't have to be in the weeds of, day-to-day implementation. So that's what I'm working on now.
Love it. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit for a second about, if someone was thinking about launching a YouTube channel, for example, right? There's so many messaging pieces that come into play there. If it's, in the introduction of your video, you want to say who you are and what you do in a really quick way that's going to hook the viewer, right? That's messaging. The about section on your profile or on your channel, that's all messaging. And why should someone subscribe to your channel? Even your channel trailer, that's a really big messaging piece of, who you are, what do you do, why should someone follow you, what's the transformation you're going to give them, all messaging pieces. So I guess what would be your for number one tip for someone who is starting a channel in terms of messaging, what they should apply?
Yeah, I think with YouTube specifically, it's that audience. Who is watching these videos, right? What do they want to hear from you? What is that transformation they're after? What sort of values are they looking for in someone that they're going to trust with whatever it is that they want to learn, right? Because YouTube is either super lifestyle or super informational, right? And so it doesn't matter what type of content you're creating, you're providing some sort of value add to their life. So what is it that they're looking for, and how are you uniquely positioned to fill that role? What's your unique point of view? And it's easier asked than answered for sure. But if you're able to think about that, if you're able to really think about what is it that I do, what is it that I offer, and why does it matter? And really connect either your experience or again, your mission, that deep passion, people are going to feel that through the screen. People watch YouTube based on personality more than anything, or especially they subscribe, they engage based on personality, right? They might stumble across your video and they might watch it just because maybe this one was useful, but they're not going to keep coming back unless they really get a feeling from you. So think about what that feeling is. Think about the values that would back that up, and go from there.
I love it. I love it. And you're so right. When you have subscribers, it's like our favorite TV shows. I always say when it comes to your YouTube channel, right? Once someone's seen your video once and they've hit that subscribe button, what's going to make them want to come tune in every single week, just like it was your favorite television show, right? What's going to have them excited that, at 3 p.m. every Thursday, you're going to launch a new video and you're so excited to go watch it. And what is that passion that behind what you're saying that's really going to make them want to connect with you? So I love that you can bring your value line messaging into something like YouTube, just like you can with Instagram and everything else. So that's really awesome. So final kind of last thing as a takeaway for anyone watching, what is like the, 3 first steps someone should take to really start to get their value line messaging down?
Yeah. Well, if we're going for 3, I approach values with a 3-pronged approach. So let's break that down. So first you need to establish your values. You need to figure out what are they, like put a name to them. And no value is inherently good or bad. Being inclusive is not better than being exclusive. It's all about the step 2 and 3, which is how you define it and how you apply it. So first step, establish what's important to you. It takes some deep reflection. I highly recommend you get some outside perspective, whether it is a life partner, a business bestie, a coach, a consultant, a mastermind, doesn't matter. Get some outside perspective because we're so close to our values. So establish what those values are and then uniquely define them for you and your brand. Because I've had many clients that have both valued simplicity, but they define it completely differently. So it manifests in their business completely differently. Or again, like you and I could both care about transparency, but you might share income reports every single day and I would never talk about money, but I would share medical issues and family situations and you would never touch that, right? Like transparency could mean something completely different for both people, both brands. So really, once you establish what those values are, uniquely define what they mean to you and your brand. And then the last step, which is potentially the most important, is to apply them. Actively apply your values and not just in your marketing. So not just your YouTube description, not just your podcast pitches, not just your about page copy. Yes, absolutely all those buckets, but not just your marketing, also your operations. So how do you hire? How do you gift to clients? How do you wrap client gifts? Or if you have packaging, what do you put on the label? What are your labels made of? Where are your ingredients sourced from? What conferences should you attend? All of these operational decisions like pricing and anything in your operational bucket should go through your values lens. So first 3 steps are to establish, uniquely define, and actively apply your values. If you do those 3 things, you are going to be light years ahead of everyone else, and you're going to feel so much more grounded and rooted in your business.
Amazing. I love that so much. I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for another half an hour about all 3 of those things, but I love it. Hopefully that gives people a little bit of a jumping off point and they can really sit there with those 3 things and start to kind of plot them out and start to understand how important those really are in their business. So I love that. I know you have a freebie for us. So you want to tell everyone a little bit about what that is, and the link for it is in the description below here as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So it's called the Stand Up to Stand Out Kit. And it's a brand messaging workbook and a consistency checklist so that you can reflect on those elements of your brand messaging, really get some values alignment there, and then also actively apply them. So go through this consistency checklist of where am I showing up really well, really in alignment with how I want to be known, what I want to represent, or, ooh, where could I be doing better? So that is a really deeply reflective kit that you can do totally for free. And then I'm also working on a new freebie. So download that so you can get on my list to hear about the new freebie too, because that'll be out very, very soon.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, link below. Check that out. Get on Ashlee's list. And if people are wanting to kind of find out more about you, where do you like to hang out?
Yeah. So my newsletter is my love letter to the business community. I love, love, love it. So if you download the freebie, you'll be on the newsletter list. That's my favorite way to show up. I'm also on Instagram at Ashlee Sang Consulting and on LinkedIn under my name, Ashlee Sang. And I have a new podcast called the Purpose and Progress Podcast. And that's also a love letter to the business community, but in sound form rather than written form. So hang out with me in any of those places and definitely reach out if you have any questions about values, about messaging, about marketing, all the things. I love to chat about it all day, every day.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so, so much for being here and sharing all of your wisdom with everyone. And we will chat soon.
Thanks so much.